Hello, clowns.
I'm Ami.
I'm Yu Chen, and we're the hosts of Clown Vibes Podcast.
We're two best friends who are chronically online and get together weekly to laugh and discuss all the clown behavior we see on the internet.
And there's so much.
Truly so much.
We're so glad to have you here to clown around with us, and we hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, clowns, and welcome back to such a special bonus episode of Clown Vibes. We're back with a very special guest, Marisa Meltzer. Welcome, Marisa. How is your morning going?
It's drizzly. Where are you guys? I forget.
We're all over
the
place.
Dallas.
Okay. Yeah, and Yu-Chen lives in SF. It's very drizzly here too. Where do you live?
I live in New York. I'm from SF.
Okay.
I've been only to the Dallas airport, but yeah, we're in one of those phases where everywhere is kind of the same weather. That weird, anyway, it's been drizzly in New York.
For sure.
I feel very I don't know. I feel kind of restless and existential.
Come to SF. It's somewhat sunny.
My parents would love it. Like, I'm just going to record that and they're going to be like, please.
Well, to give a little background on Marisa, Marisa's a journalist based in New York who for over a decade has covered beauty, fashion, wellness, and celebrity industries for top national publications such as the New York Times, the New Yorker, the Guardian, etc. She's the author of This Is Big, How Sassy Changed My Life, Girl Power, and her latest book, which we're going to discuss today, Glossy, which is the inside story of Emily Weiss's Glossier. And we're so pumped to talk about this book and girl bosses in general with you today.
Oh, I can't wait.
To start us off, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into the beauty, fashion, wellness, celebrity space and like what drew you to it?
Yeah. Well, part of it is actually where I'm from. It's growing up in the Bay Area and having kind of like hippie, yuppie parents. I had, they drank green juice and shopped at health food stores, and I had gone to acupuncture and stuff like that growing up, and all of that was fairly normal for me. And so by the time I was out of college and writing, those things like yoga and wellness stuff was just starting to become a little bit more mainstream. And editors started to assign things like that to me because my knee-jerk reaction was not, I was like, yeah, I know about that. Like, it wasn't to just be like, this is weird and I'm going to write about it as if it's this weird other thing. And so wellness and then, exercise and beauty is tied into that. And I've always been really into fashion. Also, my mom is an esthetician, so skincare has always been sort of big. And, trying to figure out how to be a naturally very pale person growing up in California was always, a journey. And and so those things all kind of seamlessly blended together. I mean, it all kind of happened organically, but I think the seed of it was really my childhood.
That's really cool. So we on the podcast always talk about how like trends are super cyclical.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a trend from your childhood that has really like lasted over the times, or is there a trend that like you want to bring back and that we're really missing out on?
Oh, that's okay. Let me think. I mean, I do think that the kind of like yoga wellness thing is pretty enduring. I think of like Madonna's yoga phase and Ray of Light, which is an album I'm obsessed with. And it still sounds good. And I'm dressed for yoga. I'm going after this.
Yeah.
I teach yoga. So all of those things I think are really enduring. Whether or not you want to call them a trend or not is another story. But I think in like the American Western world, it is, for better or for worse. And what would I like to come back? I used to always joke actually about Color Me Beautiful and the seasons and like, are you a spring or summer? And then it did come back on TikTok, and
it's so big.
I was blown away because it seemed like the ultimate 80s mom. Like, I remember my mom had swatches in her purse of like colors she was supposed to refer to while shopping. So I'm shocked, but also I think it's so funny and cute that that's back. As a child of the 90s, I love body glitter. I love like vamp nail polish. I'm ready for like a super dark vampiric lip, maybe. to come back. I have a Chanel lipstick. It's like kind of an homage to Vamp. It's very like a very dark berry.
I had a Vamp period.
Yeah. I mean, I think that Margiela Couture show had a lot of dark lips going on for it, and it just felt so sort of fresh. I think the problem is that it's not the most friendly for eating and talking, but
yeah.
And I don't like those kind of like Kylie Cosmetics style, like super long lasting lip things that like dry matte on your lips.
Yeah.
Those drive me crazy. I don't like how they look. I don't like how they feel. Yeah. Give me a lipstick.
I distinctly remember when Kylie Cosmetic came out and we were in like the dry lip era.
I hate it.
My lips are traumatized from it.
So kind of matte, brown, nude. It's just
Exactly.
like the opposite of me. I want like dewy. I want to feel something on my lip.
As an Aquaphor lover.
Oh, yes, you are an Aquaphor lover.
I'm wearing Aquaphor on my lip. Aquaphor
my lips can never be dry.
My lips are slathered in it right now. I have Aquaphor in like not only every room in my apartment, but depending on which way I'm facing or what I'm doing, there's Aquaphor within reach for an easy re-up. Like it's my
for sure
debilitating addiction.
Speaking of a very dewy brand, though, that I think is very opposite of the Vamp dark look, Glossier, there's so many topics, as we kind of just went through, about the beauty and fashion industry, but what made you choose Emily Weiss's story and the rise and fall of Glossier?
Well, it was a little bit organic and a little bit by accident. I knew I wanted to write a book about beauty because there just wasn't one that existed about how the industry had like really risen to prominence, the incredible money and power behind it. I felt like after reporting on it for so many years that I and other people who followed it understood kind of how significant it was, but no one else did. And I thought that there was room for something that was interesting too, just because beauty brands aren't exactly esoteric. So I wanted to do a book about beauty, and my initial feeling was that I would do one that kind of followed a bunch of different brands in different stages of life coming from different areas. But Glossy was always going to be kind of the central one because to me it was the most emblematic. And then there was a certain phase of reporting and writing, at least for me, where you kind of have to get out of the way of what you think is going to happen and you have to let the story that's happening unfold and kind of get out of your own way. And that's when I knew it had to be about Glossier, that I could talk about everything else I wanted, talk about through the lens of this one brand, and also that it was an interesting, compelling story with fascinating characters and actually a story, which is, I think, the problem with a lot of these kind of like big thinking cultural books is that they're a little diffuse and random and that, they don't necessarily have a great central thread.
I appreciated that there was a peak. It followed kind of like a fiction book, but it obviously wasn't.
Definitely.
And that was very like fun to read in a nonfiction.
Thank you. I put a lot of thought into wanting to write it like a thriller and the kind of way that storytelling devices and I wanted it to be kind of lean, and my editing was a lot of cutting things out, not even necessarily whole chapters, but more like just line by line of like cutting out the fat so that it just felt like it was this really propulsive story that you couldn't put down.
Yeah. I will say we've read quite a few books on Clown Vibes, and this is definitely like the best that we've read thus far.
Oh, thank you.
We enjoyed it the most out of all the Clown Vibes books that we read.
I listened to the audiobook and I went on a road trip this weekend with my friends and I was like, no one talk to me. I'm listening to this book.
Yeah, so I obviously didn't read the audiobook, which is great because my last book I read the audiobook and it's so exhausting. You lose your voice.
Sure.
I mean, you're getting paid to do it. It's a great way to make money, but it's just like very physical in this way that I was not prepared for. But so the most fun was they send you like little clips of the people who they're considering for voices and you get to like rank your preferences, and nothing was more fun than and it was the person who I liked the most who ended up recording it. But just listening to the way they talk and being like, is this the voice of my book?
Yeah, that's such an interesting like thing to do.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't think about. to talk about Glossy, we wanted to talk about it, kind of how your book is structured, the beginning, the like peak of Glossier, and then kind of like the fallout towards the end of the story. I saw that you named part 1 The Super Intern. And while I did not watch The Hills at probably the target age because I was a little young, I love The Hills and I'm obsessed with it.
Okay, so you have watched it. Yeah.
Yes, I have watched it. But I actually did not like think Emily was that big of a character in the show. And like it wasn't until Glossier that I even remembered, or like someone said like, oh, that was the intern in The Hills, that I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, like, how did being on The Hills affect Emily in a way that made this such a prominent part of her uprise?
Well, I think, The Hills was huge when it was
Oh,
out.
for sure.
It was definitely talked about. And for me, I just remembered her because she was so different from all the other characters. She was really like this New York City, I don't want to say demon, but she was just so much more capable than the girls on the show. And at the time, I was a writer in New York and I was writing for Teen Vogue and knew people that worked there and what life was like and interns, and was like Lauren Conrad and the girls that are interning in LA. It's basically this kind of like fake scenario for this reality
TV
setup. But this is like an actual Condé Nast intern. Like that's what they're like. They're, kind of dressed like this, their can-do attitude. It felt complete. And also just the way like her beauty looked. Like she wasn't doing like a smoky eye and low-rise jeans. She was wearing like sensible black, and like kind of how everyone at Condé Nast was, which was like you invested in your skin and your hair and having kind of all of the blank space done well, so then you didn't need to wear a lot of makeup. So I guess I just found her very memorable because of where I was coming from. But I think other people did too, because she was so different from all of the other characters, and it was this kind of memorable plot line. But, I didn't really think of her much after that until Into the Gloss. Her blog came out and someone was like, have you read it? It's by that girl that was on The Hills. And I was like, oh, wow. Like I haven't thought about her in, 4 years or whatever. So yeah.
That is fair. For someone who was on the show for like 5 minutes, we do remember her.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's interesting that she could have totally done her own reality show or something like that after that. I'm sure she was given the opportunity and it was kind of peak, that kind of thing. And she didn't. She decided to stay in the magazine industry and then start her own beauty blog.
Yeah, I like so vividly remember, I think it was her last scene on The Hills where she got to stay for the dinner and Lauren and Whitney left and had McDonald's in the car.
I think I would have preferred Lauren and Whitney's.
No, for sure. Now,
same.
Someone, it's just like, oh, great, I get to stay for a work dinner where I'm not going to relax and I'm like on, my toes.
Have to be on.
Everything versus eating a Big Mac in a car with my friend. But also at the time, I understand. And that kind of setting people up against each other and like the best one gets to do this thing. A classic scenario, and one that I, as a classic kind of ambitious overachiever type, is like, I want to be that one.
It was a very like relatable situation for sure.
Yeah.
In your book, I was able to kind of like piece together that you've probably met and interviewed and spoke with Emily Weiss for a couple of years, like since I would say your Teen Vogue years, like you've at least known of her. But as of now, do you think you can say that you actually know Emily, like who she is as a person, or is she still somewhat of an enigma to you?
Oh, she's still definitely an enigma to me. I think she's an enigma to a lot of people. But I also think that's why she's such a compelling person to write about, because those are the people that you need hundreds of pages to explore and talk about. And you kind of be like rooting for her 1 minute and being like, oh, why are you doing this the next minute? And you can't tell if you like them or admire them or, all of these kinds of things that all women and all characters in fiction and nonfiction are sort of subjected to. And so I think that was really great for the narrative. But yeah, no, she's very hard to read and to understand. I am not like that at all. I'm very sort of, I don't know, I wish I was more mysterious. I'm absolutely not. And so I think I'm also just fascinated by people who are just so built differently from me and the way that they interact with the world.
Totally, for sure.
I used to work in fashion at a D2C startup-ish company, very similar to Glossier. And I feel like the founder that I work with is very similar to Emily, like very closed off to her personal life. Like you don't really know her. And I feel like that makes working with someone very difficult, especially as you're trying to grow a company. Like I would say like right now in my company that I'm working with, it's just so much easier to understand the direction that's coming out of the mouth of like your lead when they are more of an open book. And I almost feel like that kind of like hindered the growth of Glossier just a little bit, just from like what I've read in your book.
I like people that are direct, and I like knowing where I stand and what they want from me. I also think there is a way that, like, you know, many people in the public eye, many celebrities, for example, are able to be open or at least give a sense of like they're opening up part of their life, or they're, you know, open in a certain sense. And of course, there are going to be things that no one knows about you, or only people that are very intimate. And she kind of didn't choose to do that, which is interesting. You know, I keep saying interesting, but it's fascinating to me. But there is that way that you can kind of seem open and have a more front-facing persona without giving everything away.
Definitely. And I think we've all lived through like the craze and the peak of Glossier. I remember when I used to live in Soho, I would walk past the Soho Glossier store and the lines were
Lafayette.
Yes, the lines were insane. I also used to work in the same building that Glossier headquarters were at the time.
Okay.
Which was interesting because I remember someone pointing out like, oh, that's Emily Weiss. And I'm just like, I have no idea
The
who
one
she
on
is.
the one above the Crate and Barrel, or the other one?
The other one.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing about this book that it's kind of like an Easter egg, or you know, if you know New York, you get it, whereas everything in the book takes place within like a 3-block radius in Soho.
It was really fun.
Which is fascinating and strange and kind of funny. If you don't need to know that in order to get it, but if you realize that like everything is like literally you can just like see it from the other place, or it's like a 3-minute walk, it gives this layer of intensity and like smallness, insulation.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of, you know, how fictional novels where they are based in like a fictional realm and they have a diagram of all the like places. I almost wish we had like a diagram of Soho where we could like map out where all these events happen. That would have been really fun.
I know. It'd be like, here's the Ruby Rosa where they'd order pizza.
Yeah. But so we've all lived kind of like through that craze, but were there any cracks during that peak that you like kind of noticed during your years as a journalist that kind of made you like pause and say, maybe things aren't as rosy for Glossier as like we all thought? Was it all just like to the outside guest all rosy and like there's nowhere but up?
I mean, both. I think it's really easy to be sold their kind of rise and rise and rise narrative. But at the same time, I had enough conversation with Emily off the record that gave me some idea of, you know, I can't share, but, you know, maybe like the parts of her job she enjoyed and didn't enjoy. And in order to be a kind of long-term, long-standing CEO, you need to really kind of like all of it in a certain way, or at least be really good at doing all of it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I mean, nothing can ever just be this narrative of success upon success upon success forever. There's always going to be at least some kind of flattening plateau moment. And, you know, I knew that Emily was a enigmatic person. And then if you were looking at the kind of other women in her Girlboss cohort, I often heard stories, coworkers, friends, enemies, whatever, people talk about some of them having bad behavior or being poor managers or even worse, or just being kind of like crappy people. And so you sort of knew that like public selves weren't always, it seemed, totally in line with the stories that they were telling. And so I think a lot of us weren't totally surprised when the girl bosses were taken down. I mean, probably no one really was, because the way they were kind of valorized was so ridiculous. But yeah.
Speaking of the girl bosses and that whole movement, do you think Emily's success was correlated, or do you think she was unique in that she was going to succeed at any time without like the girl boss thing? I understand that the time of Glossier was also very important because it was a new thing.
Absolutely.
In that moment.
The time was important. I think she's not just ambitious, which is important, but she had this sense of who she was and what she wanted, which is really unparalleled to anyone else that I've ever covered. But I think it's rising tide in terms of she had to go and get funding, which was pretty complicated, and having to convince rooms full of mostly men that like they should invest in beauty. And of course, they were really patronizing about it. And the numbers are still terrible when you look at who gets funding, in terms of gender, in terms of race and class, of course, worse. But I do think that her success of getting, I don't know, it's probably like 280 million of funding, I think they had.
A lot.
Crazy.
Yeah, I think that probably helped open the door a little bit, at least for other beauty brands, because it seemed like they really ushered in beauty gold rush.
For sure. I think that time was like so interesting. And obviously we've seen so many like TV shows, movies about it, and I eat that up. We are both in the startup world, so it feels very like natural for us to come at it from the what did they do wrong lens. And I think this book was interesting because while I saw a lot of parallels to how my life is at certain startups I've been at, I've also really respected some of the things Emily did that you explained that I feel like male CEOs and founders just don't really do.
Yeah, it's such a double standard.
Yeah. Do you think had Emily not decided to step down, that the ending of your book would have changed a little bit, or you would have felt a very different like vibe at the end?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I had basically written a whole draft by the time she stepped down.
Oh, really?
And so, the ending was different, partly because she hadn't, and also because it was more, in a way, it was worse because it was more open-ended of me just being like, is she going to be, I mean, it was very rough and I hadn't quite written it, but it was sort of me meditating and thinking about like, is she going to be the Steve Jobs or, Phil Knight or whatever of the millennial women demographic. And it's hard because it's hard to end a book like that where you're just like, question. And so in a way, I was shocked by her stepping down and wondered briefly if it would make the book kind of less important. But then I realized it actually gave me like a real ending to the book, and a way to sort of still talk about the future of Glossier, but it was this kind of bookend of this kind of beginning and end of this act in a woman's life.
For me personally, I like ended the book really respecting her, because I think like knowing when to take a step back is so important, and like knowing like what you want to do, like what you're good at, is a great skill that I think a lot of people struggle to learn. So it was nice to end the book in a way where I was like, wow, I really like Emily.
Yeah. And I like a book where, you can decide how you feel about someone. I am there as the author to kind of guide you. And, I hope that you have an idea of how I feel and you feel like you're in good hands. But I also want people to bring their own life and experience and thoughts and like take it away and want to talk about the people and the ending and, what they would have done, all of that.
I never wanted, or I never felt inclined to purchase anything from Glossier until I actually read your book.
I heard a lot. I hear that
really?
all the time. Yeah. Everyone who reads it says that, which I hope Glossier knows that, because it definitely seems like people were like, oh, I was reminded of this, or I've always meant to order this.
I've been getting Glossier ads now.
Sorry. But also they're cute, so you could
totally.
I haven't bought it yet, but I think I want to get the perfume. Partially because of the virality of the TikTok Yeah.
I love the perfume. And if you want to start small, there's like a travel roller ball that
Oh,
is
yeah.
pretty
Okay.
inexpensive. And so that's a nice place to start. But it's pretty cheap for how big it is. I think it's the #1 perfume in Sephora already. It's really nice.
Good.
They hit it out of the park with it.
Definitely.
And then if you like the scent, like there's a deodorant and a candle in that scent. Yeah, you can really go for it.
You can become you.
Yes.
Yes, you can.
So you ended the book kind of highlighting a bunch of female founders that have kind of like taken the fall during the end of the girl boss era. Like Sophia Amoruso comes to mind, The Wing, Away, all of these like really large millennial brands that definitely weren't having the best moment, I would say, in 2020.
Who was really?
Yeah. Seriously.
It was the era of the takedown.
Yes, it was. And it all happened within like a year or so of each other.
Oh, yeah.
But from a journalist's point of view, what are some of the trends that you're seeing now in regards to female founders or female leads in the industry? And is it different from the story or the point of view that you would want to tell?
I think that people are obviously afraid of the word girl boss and any of that kind of branding.
Yeah.
You know, the only time I hear it is when people are joking of like, now I'm on my girl boss grind, like this morning going to a meeting or whatever. You know, people aren't wearing like pink power pantsuits, posing in the same way. But at the same time, if you look at my inbox and press releases and pitches I get from people that are representing founders of beauty companies or tech companies or finance or what have you, they're still kind of selling the stories of these women the same way of like, they have made this much money or this much fundraising or this product sold out in, you know, 3 hours or whatever. The story is the same. I'd say the marketing, the way that they're marketing themselves is a little bit different.
It's really interesting. It kind of sucks that you have to do it that way, but I guess you have to play the game.
I mean, well, yes and no. I mean, I always try to remind people that these were women that were in really front-facing industries and front-facing positions. There are plenty of women working, you know, as CEOs or founders or in powerful, you know, C-suite position in B2B companies or, you know, healthcare or, you know, what have you that aren't like doing the same kind of press cycle. And also these women are retaining publicity and trying to get stories about them, which obviously can help with marketing of their product.
And to like go back to how Girlboss is basically used only as a joke these days, how are you feeling about the rise and also fall of the girl term? Because we don't really see like girl dinner or girl math much anymore, but there was a hot minute, especially around when your book came out, that it was everywhere. And
and
I
also
was really
Barbie
liking it.
and everything.
Yeah.
We were really having a girl moment in the summer and fall. I mean, as someone who is my diet is pretty much largely girl food and girl dinner, and I practice girl math way more than I would like to admit. And in terms of my logic around money and shopping and all of that, it's still a part of me. But I mean, I think that it's hard because those things are kind of cheeky and funny and a little self-aware. And then people are trying to market them to you or you see a 7-year-old be like, ooh, girl math. And it's like, no. Like,
it's just bad
math time.
Exactly. Like, I don't want you to be interpreting it this way, you know? And so, I think that it gets out of the sort of
funness
group of people that kind of understands the layers of irony and self-deprecation with it and into the hands of the wrong people. And then it becomes nefarious.
It really always takes a life of its own, especially on TikTok.
Everything does. Yeah.
The internet creates and ruins everything.
Absolutely.
Do you think the desire for like girl bosses is going to come back and the term is going to come back since we know that everything is cyclical? Or do you think that we've had enough?
I mean, it's true. Everything is cyclical. It's really hard for me to imagine girl boss as a term because to me, girl boss was always cringy. right?
Yeah.
It kind of felt like something, I don't know, hipster or something where no one is like proudly calling themselves that. Other people are kind of giving them that sobriquet. And so to me, it was like no one wants to call themselves a girl boss. It's like kind of embarrassing, but we all know what everyone meant by that. And so it's hard for me to imagine that ever being truly in fashion. But again, it's true. Everything's come back into fashion. So it's probably inevitable. And again, like female ambition is obviously not going anywhere. Women
for sure
in business positions are not going anywhere. I think the question is, will we ever be in an environment where there's more nuanced ways to cover women, or there's more parity or less kind of ghettoization or tokenization of women in power and business? And if that can happen, then we don't really need it. I'm cynical.
Same.
I think we need a rebrand of girl bosses. I'm just not creative enough to come up with the next term.
Well, look, think about it. Yeah, because you could really
I could really capitalize on it.
Start that Substack, start the like merch now. Yes.
Okay, I want to wrap us up with some rapid fire questions. So just say the first thing that comes into your mind.
Sure.
So if you could attend a company's camp, like you had described in the book, like Glossier had a camp as an employee, what camp would you like to attend?
I mean, honestly, the Glossier one looked amazing, but I think for me, it would maybe be Hermes, because I would love any kind of merch that they gave me.
Yes.
And also I've been
for sure.
I've been to their headquarters, and they clearly have put a lot of thought into like the happiness of employees. There's like tons of outdoor space and park, like place to sit outside and have a sandwich and stuff. And so I can only imagine if I don't think they have really offsites, but if they did have a camp, it would be pure magic.
I feel like camps are coming back. Like I saw Camp Poosh a couple months ago.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
I don't know if I would like really enjoy that as an employee. I'd be like, I guess I'll go to this like weekend getaway.
Look, other people I know are much bigger like Skims fans than I am, but I have to imagine a Skims camp would be a lot of fun.
That's true.
Like custom merch, maybe some of the campaign models coming to like give talk, maybe Kendall's coming with 818 Tila for a night. Like I feel like
That's so true.
It's a different
They could do like their own ecosystem.
Exactly. Like
Camp Kardashian.
I would enjoy the hell out of that. Yeah.
That's so true. I would too. I think I would only enjoy like a celeb brand camp as an employee. Everything else, I'd be like, this is work still.
Oh, yeah. Like,
but
honestly,
I would be able
Goop,
to disconnect.
Sign me up. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, second question. What is like an outrageous product that you think Glossier should carry? Like tampons, what else? Nail polish? I feel like actually nail polish is probably not that outrageous.
No, they
Hotels.
did one nail polish in a holiday gift set of like Glossier pink, but there must be a reason. Nail polish is kind of its own thing too. I mean, honestly, a cute Glossier tampon would be so adorable. I bet they would think of such a cute carrying case. Like I actually already keep my tampons in one of those pink bubble
the Glossier pouches.
There was a period where menstrual products were becoming rather innovative, and I feel like we kind of got away from it.
Yeah,
and I think we could really bring it back.
Yeah, I think menstrual product cute. Similarly, especially now that aren't there some over-the-counter birth controls? Is there an over-the-counter pill, like a Glossier branded birth control pill? The pink would be so cute, like in like a retro thing. I mean, similarly, like a Glossier pink condom would be really chic.
Yes. The world is their oyster.
Yeah, sky's the limit. I would love to know what they would do with like oral health floss, toothbrushes, toothpaste. They did a little collab with Marvis, and I would love to see like that kind of stuff. I love like tooth care and all of that.
Yeah. I would love to see an electric toothbrush from them.
Oh,
it would
that'd be so cute.
I mean, kind of the like Dyson world, if Glossier were to take that on, those devices could be really cute. I mean, the Dyson ones are fine and work well and look decent, but like the Glossier spin on like the hair dryer or whatever would be so cute.
For sure.
And I would say like a lot of their branding and their ability to expand their line is due to like their iconic color Glossier pink and what it represents to society. What color do you think could be the next Glossier pink?
An acquaintance of mine did a newsletter recently about her obsession with lilac, because also it was lilac season. I think it's kind of
for
lilac.
sure.
I also love lilac. I love the smell of lilac. I love the color. I love how fleeting the season is. Similarly, like I grew up partly in a house that had a lot of wisteria, which is a similar short season in that same kind of purple color. And like Tatcha sort of has a lilac signature color, but I think like that right shade of a like cool light purple could feel really fresh. I have a carpet that's like a very dark red fuchsia with some black, and that feels really nice, especially with like wood floors and kind of browns, and it gives me in my apartment some personality in a different way than a lot of the kind of like whites and minimalism that people are going for. So I think we're ready for some like bold colors. Yeah.
I am so glad you said that, because I think we need to end the beige era. I'm tired of beige.
Everyone is so done with it. Like beiges and grays and mustards and all of that. Like all the meme accounts about like sad beige toddlers.
Yes.
Their parents dressing them. Like I'm kind of inclined, like I love whites and camels and beiges and creams, but I've been trying to get away from that, partially because it's kind of everywhere and I'm over it aesthetically, and also because it just makes me look like a ghost. Like it's just like me, like white on white on white. And I've been kind of slightly more black, more dark colors. Like I think we're all ready. Maybe like some dreaded jewel tones, but done in a way that's really beautiful.
I was just telling you, Chen, before you joined, like I only have neutral colors in my closet and I'm over it.
Yeah, I think we're over it. I bought this pink blouse from the Japanese line Orally, and it's kind of a glossy. It's like a little bit more bubblegum than a millennial pink, but it's also sheer. And I just bought it, but every time I've worn it, people have like stopped me and been like, oh, that color, like I think we're hungry for good color.
Yeah, for sure. Can you share a funny or unexpected story that happened while you were researching and writing this book? A clown story, if you will.
Yeah. Oh gosh, let me think about it. I mean, any stories that I heard about celebrities going to the Glossier stores, I loved. Like, I think it's in the book, a story about Apple Martin, Gwyneth Paltrow's daughter's like credit card being declined and her being like,
that made me giggle.
And then, there's like a lot of stories about Olivia Rodrigo bringing various famous friends. I love all of that. Yeah, there was a lot of moments of me going to Glossier stores and just kind of like milling around and listening to people talk and listening to like sorority girls bonding and all of that was like I can't think of anything specifically funny, but the whole thing was kind of funny. I did take my agent's son, who's like very close to me, and he's just graduating high school like next week. So he was probably a freshman when I was starting to work on the book, and he's gay and he's like has amazing taste. We went to the Glossier store together, and like he got his kind of like first, skincare routine. And even now he's so like chic and over it, but he was like, He's like, I'm going to wear my Glossier sweatshirt to college, like LOL. Like, it's kind of like ironic now. And I was like, you're very advanced. Yeah. But I was also like, no, it's cool. That is a good way to signal and meet the cool girls and gays that you're going to become friends with in college.
For sure.
They're going to get it.
Yeah. Reading the book, I was like, I need the sweatshirt. And I'm like sad I didn't get it.
Oh, they still have so many of them. You can definitely get them.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
There was a period where I saw people were buying the jumpsuit that the store associates were wearing, but then they were buying it like in white or beige at a cheaper price and then like dyeing it the Glossier pink.
Yeah.
The commitment.
Like, oh, that's so iconic. I think that was when we were into tie-dyeing. That was a COVID phase.
We were all just dying. I know, that was a terrible phase.
To wrap us up, I saw that on Instagram, your next project is on Jane Birkin. Sounds like you also did some research in Europe.
I did, yeah.
What drew you to Jane? as a topic?
I've always been a Francophile, which is, I don't know if that's embarrassing or not. My birthday is on Bastille Day, which is the French Independence Day. And so before I even had a choice, my parents would give me these like sort of French themed birthdays and presents just because it was like,
that's funny.
That's obvious. Amazing.
Yeah. And then, so I always was kind of like into France, and I took French in school for a long time and then did a year in university at the University of Paris. And so I speak French, not as fluently as I speak English, but I do speak it. It's a culture that fascinates me. Paris is probably the city that I know the best after New York. It's pretty much like a second home. And I had listened to Serge Gainsbourg and Jane Birkin's music probably from like college on. And so I was always fascinated by her, but also in this kind of larger sense of her complicated role in terms of like ambassadorship of the selling of the French girl to the rest of the world. And also when your name becomes the name of like the most famous handbag in the world, but you're not really making any money from it. And like that becomes more famous than you. And then also she just had all of these relationships with like way older men, and like, you know, why do you choose that? And the idea of muse versus agency, all of these things that,
it's fascinating.
Kind of like Glossy, that I was personally obsessed with and knew that there was a lot to say.
I can't wait to read it.
That'll be next summer. So yeah, I'll be back.
Oh my gosh, making us wait.
I've been working so fast. I literally went straight from like Glossy promotion and book tour to researching, writing it, and then it ended, and now the paperback of Glossy is coming out, and I'm about to do the second draft of this book. So I'm doing everything as fast as I can. I'm very prolific, I guess.
Well, we also heard that there's a Glossy adaptation coming to our screens. Do you have anything to share, or will it be coming faster than the next book that you're writing?
Oh, I don't know the timeline, because I don't even know if anyone really knows those things, because the Hollywood world is so strange how that works. But I do know that they have picked a writer, showrunner, and I don't know a lot more than that, but it's all coming along at a clip. And I can't wait to like read the first scripts, and it's all with like, knock on wood that it happens, because so many things, end up not happening at the last minute or whatever. But my dream is to come visit a set of like the Glossy store and the offices, or Emily's office or whatever. And, to feel like I'm in that world would be so, so great. So yeah, fingers are crossed.
Did you watch Girlboss?
No, I did not.
When it came on Netflix?
No. Okay. I'm aware of it, but I didn't watch it.
Yeah, I did like that show. So I'm hoping, Glossy will be in similar vein to that one.
I think so. I mean, I think the idea is for it to be, it is a TV show and not a movie. Yeah. And I think that they want it to be the kind of thing where you just like want to be in that world.
Yeah.
The way that you want to be in Glossier's world, IRL.
For sure.
That's so fun. When I was reading Glossy, I definitely felt like this would be a really fun beach read to have, like on the beach or by the pool. It definitely gives me like summer vibes.
Yeah. It came out in the fall just for various timing reasons, but the paperback is coming out in a couple weeks. In the very beginning of June, has a new epilogue, and it's the perfect like beach read.
It's nice to feel like, I'm reading nonfiction, but in like such a fun and girly way.
Yeah, I mean, nonfiction, girl reading. Nonfiction can be fun and gossipy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, Marisa, this has been so lovely. We had so much fun reading and talking to you. Where can our readers connect with you? Readers. We don't have readers. We have listeners.
I'm on Instagram at Marisa Meltzer, just my first and last name. I have a website, marisameltzer.com. All that stuff should have all my info. And then I write frequently for different places, but mostly the New York Times, the style section. And and my next book comes out next summer, I hope, if all goes well.
It will. And we will be reading it in Greece, hopefully, summer of 2025. You kind of manifesting this for us.
Oh, I'm going to Greece. I went to Greece last summer, and I'm going again this summer. Yeah.
Oh, we love Greece.
I love Greece too.
Thanks so much for listening. You can follow us on all social media at Clown Vibes Podcast, or email us at clownvibespodcast@gmail.com.
And if you like our show and want to support us, please like, subscribe, and give us a rating and review. That's it for today. Bye, clowns.
Bye, clowns.